Welcome back to the Student Hub Live Moving On and Summer Study event. In this session, I'm joined by Rachel Penny from Psychology, and we're going to be talking about preparing for Level 3. But before I do that, Rachel, Moses has a question, which is, can he register for a Level 2 module before his Level 1 result is out? And I know we've got our student support team coming along later, but do you know the answer?
So yes, in principle, yes. Registration opens early. It's already open, obviously, and you can register for your Level 2 module, but there are some Level 2 modules where you have to have passed a Level 1 module before you can confirm it. So it's just to bear in mind that if you didn't get the result you needed at Level 1, that might affect things, but your SST are absolutely the people to talk to if that scenario happens. But I think you should be confident and register for your Level 2 based on what you are planning to study, and then if you don't get the result you need, there will be advice about what to do and speak to your SST. But yes, in principle you can, but it may have a proviso that you need to have passed a Level 1 module in order to actually start the study at Level 2. So
registration is confusing, isn't it? And that's why we've got our SST coming in to answer all your questions about that a little bit later on in the programme. Now, Rachel, you're teaching and in charge of some modules at Level 2 and also Level 3, and I wondered if we could sort of pick on the sort of ideas around getting ready over the summer, because Level 3 is, as we know, when the qualification marks start really mattering.
Yes.
So it's the sort of time when people might feel a little bit more anxious.
Yeah, I think, that's right. I think at Level 2 they start to count, then the Level 3 modules are more a proportion of your final degree classification. So depending on your employment goals, depending on your study goals, what you might want to do after your undergraduate, it's definitely a time when people start to feel, especially when their Level 2 results come out and then they know what they're carrying into their degree classification so far, then suddenly that becomes more of an awareness. So that can cause some anxiety, and we understand that. I think that the summertime after Level 2, as your previous speaker was saying, it is more challenging to study at Level 2. The modules have been designed so that you're ready for it. They are stepped accordingly. That's also true for the step up to Level 3. There is a step up, but your Level 2 modules have been designed to prepare you for that step up. So it's a good time, again, to reflect on those Level 2 modules. Think about what you've been studying. Think about what those overall course themes were that were coming through the module. How do you feel you got on with them? Is there any gaps? Or did you have a stressful week or two and you had to kind of sideline a couple of weeks study? Maybe there's some content that would be really good to revisit to consolidate that learning. So summertime can be a really good time just to reflect, consolidate the learning, but also potentially do some preparation for that Level 3 study. So do you have a qual site? If so, there might be a forum on that qual site where you can speak to and ask questions to other students who maybe have done some of the Level 3 modules, so you can get a feel for, was there particular activities that would be useful? Is there particular reading that would be useful? And sometimes qualification leads might go on those forums to answer some questions as well. So have a visit of your qualification website. Every student will have one. And go and see, go and explore, have a look around. There's loads of skills stuff, there's loads of information on them, and there is usually a forum as well where you can go and visit and ask some questions all about thinking about those next steps and acknowledge your anxiety. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're the only one that's a bit nervous about stepping up to Level 3. And I guarantee you put that out there, you'll get a lot of love back, because a lot of people will be feeling the same way, and they'll just be glad that somebody else voiced it as well, you know.
Even on the OU Facebook page, I've seen people saying, I'm thinking about this module, could I do it with this? And people have been sharing their advice, and that's really nice.
Peer support, it's really important. And I think a lot of people assume that distance learners somehow want to work in isolation. Now, some people do. They want to just get on with their own studies and work by themselves, and that's absolutely fine. It's a good choice for them. But I think the idea that for other OU students, they don't want that community, they don't want that support and everything else, we just do it different ways. And actually it's really important to kind of be speaking to each other, and people are usually very happy to share kind of what they wish they'd known or just how their experience was so they can help you. Very supportive community, just tap into it.
Yeah, and Davin does a lot of that in the chat here today as well, so he's been sharing tips and advice. How's everything going, HJ?
Well, it's going well. I'm thinking about my outfit for the evening, so I thought a nice bow tie would be good. You know, I want to dress up a little, and of course I've got my coconut cocktail ready to go, so I think I'm trying to match up some outfits, so let me know what you think in the chat. But we've got two fantastic questions I'd like to put to Rachel. Caroline's asking, with level 3, is there a lot of work with peers or is it more individual lone work that you'd be doing?
Okay, that's interesting, and that probably will be dependent on the module you're studying. So some modules will have collaborative work involved, some will be more independent based. So I would say that's a really good question, but it's impossible to answer for all level 3 modules. I would say that for all level 3, there is more emphasis on independent learning because you have been developing your skills as a learner, and level 3 is the time to really put them into practice. So there will be more emphasis on looking for your own sources to help evidence your arguments in assignments, and possibly doing a research project. And again, you'll be working, depending on the module, you'll be working with other people or working by yourself to do that project. So it really does depend on the module you're studying, but you will have a tutor group, you will have peers studying the same module. So even if there's more emphasis on you working alone in terms of finding your source and stuff, that doesn't mean you're not sharing your learning experience with others, just as you have been with level 2 and level 1.
Brilliant. And was there another question?
Yeah, I've got two questions, similar subject. People are thinking of moving on from level 3 to masters. So they say, Evelyn says, the choices for level 3 affect the options for a masters. Can you say something about that? I'm doing an open degree and found I can only do philosophy or history as an MA, so I need to do either for level 3. And Evelyn's a student in the Netherlands, so maybe that plays a role. And on the same sort of thread, Caroline says, I want to do a master's in psychology, but I moved from psychology to combine STEM. Will I have issues there too? So does level 3 act as a kind of prerequisite? How can we link the modules, do we think?
I think there's a really good point that when you're studying at level 3, what you're doing after your degree suddenly becomes more on your radar. Yeah. You know, when you're at level 1, level 2, you're kind of thinking the level ahead. And so at level 3, you are thinking about that step after your undergraduate degree, which is exciting. I mean, that's a really great place to be. Now, in terms of postgraduate study, again, it depends on the subject you're studying and what you want to do that might affect your study choices. Now, I would say for both of those examples there, the best advice is to speak to your student support team, because they have all the information about the different pathways you can study. And it's really, they have educational advisors whose job it is to help you make those correct study choices. So absolutely get in touch with your SST, ask them those very specific questions you have. But what I would say is if you're still thinking about which level 3 modules to pick, then thinking about what your goals are for after your undergraduate degree, this is the perfect time to be thinking about that, considering it. There's the careers people who are very happy to talk to you. You can organise a one-to-one phone call with a member of the careers service at the OU. There are careers forums. There's lots of advice on the careers website. So again, if you're not sure what to do, great if you have an absolute set plan in your head. But if you're not sure what to do yet, you can still be thinking about that now. But if you don't have any plans, don't worry, because it might be that as you do your level 3, that's when your study goals become apparent. I didn't have a clue what to do. It was in my final year, doing my final year project, and I got really interested in doing research. That meant I went on to do a PhD. But before my final year of my degree, undergraduate degree, I'd never considered doing a PhD. So don't worry if you're sitting there going, oh gosh, everybody's got a plan for after their degree and I don't know what to do at level 3 because I don't know what's next. You don't have to know what's next. Do what you're interested in. If you don't have any other plans, do what you're interested in. If you do know what your plans are, then it is a really good moment to have a chat with a member of the SST to check that what you want to do next year helps you get to that point. but there's always, even if it means having to do another course, an extra course, there's always a way to get to your study goals. It might take a bit longer depending on what you've studied so far. But, you know, when my dad left school, he had to go to night school to do some extra, in Scotland it was extra hires in order to get the degree. So it took him a bit longer, but he got there. And I think there's always a way, and it might take you a bit longer depending on what you've studied so far. But speak to your SST, find out what your options are. If you're interested in something, it's probably better taking the extra time now to do the work to get to that. So just ask your questions, especially if you've got very specific goals.
Brilliant. Does that answer the question, HJ?
Yes, we've actually...
You could read without your sunglasses on.
I know. I tried these on. I'm very happy because Kelvin thinks these would be fantastic for like a summer cycle. So I'm really pleased about that. So I'm starting to get my wardrobe organised. We have got some other questions. Is it okay if we ask them?
Go on then.
Fantastic. So Caroline would like to know, in level 3, are the word limits a lot higher for the assignments, and do all the modules end in a dissertation?
Good question.
Well, that is a good question. And that is, again, it would be I would never be able to cover every module. So that is definitely one where, again, going to the qualification site, you may be able to find little descriptors of courses and modules that are coming up. So you might find out a bit more information that way. Again, you can speak to the SST about specifics. I think a lot of level 3 modules have some sort of dissertation or independent piece of work, but it will vary depending on the module. And it won't necessarily be more words, although often it is more words. Again, sometimes it's a particular research project, sometimes it's just an extended assignment, sometimes it's another piece of work. So it depends on your subject area, and it depends on the exact modules you're doing. And obviously you'll be doing more than one module at level 3, so one of them might involve some sort of project or dissertation and the other one might not. So again, it really comes down to the specific module, but it's really good to be thinking about that. And again, if you're weighing up different modules in your mind, then finding out that information about the modules might help you in your decision process. So again, go reading, go exploring, and this is the perfect time to do it for level 3.
We were talking as well, Rachel, the other day about making decisions based on assessment, about which module to choose, because some people will be sort of very swayed by that. And this question about whether there's a dissertation at the end. What advice would you give people about looking at the assessment and deciding then which, if they have a choice?
I think it's one of those interesting things, because people sometimes are put off by a particular type of assessment, and actually their anticipation of it might be worse than the actual experience of that assessment. So I would try and encourage people to go with the topic, like the subject area of the module, more than the particular type of assessment. But if you know there's a particular type of assessment that maybe hones in on employability skills that you want to develop for your plans after your degree, then it could be a really good choice to be aiming for a module that is going to up the level and the development and being able to demonstrate those skills to a future employer. So it can be really useful to find out more about the assessment and to know what would be coming up in that sense. But I would say if it's just that you're not sure if you can manage it, just like other modules you've already done, every module will prepare you and give you very clear guidance about the task and how they want you to approach it. And your tutor's there to answer questions about the task and how to approach it. And so you will be given the skills, you'll be given the tools, I should say, to complete the assessment, whatever it is. So it might be that there's other factors to consider, whether the content or employability skills or some other factor as well. But it can help to just think those things through. So again, forewarned is forearmed, and you're going to know more and make an informed choice. And I would say that making an informed choice, especially at level 3, when you know that they do count more towards your degree, is a really good thing. And it will give you confidence that you've made the right decision, so that when you then start your module, you feel ready.
Okay, brilliant. Now, we asked people at home how prepared they felt for level 3, and this was interesting because 75% said they feel quite prepared, which was the middle option.
Yeah.
25% said very prepared and nobody said not well prepared. So that's great.
Yeah.
But it might just be that people are getting more used to study by this particular point. But I wanted to come back to this idea about word count and word limits and things, because at level 1 sometimes you think, oh, I wish I had another few thousand words because I've written so much here and I've got to edit it. And we all know that at level 1 it's often about description, and level 2 you sort of start getting a bit more evaluative, and level 3 you need to be a little bit more critical.
Yes.
And so often accompanying this greater complexity of the task or depth or increased word limit or whatever it might be, the words aren't always the same as they might be at level 2 or level 1. You're expected to do slightly different things with those words. So how might students sort of try and conceptualise some of that in terms of the way that things are going to be slightly different, those skills?
So I would say that increasingly you are stepping back from the information and taking that broader view. So really at level 1 you're in the content and you're kind of describing what you see, you're checking your understanding. At level 2 you're beginning to step back and take more of that overview. At level 3 you're taking that further step back and taking that wider view, and that's why I'm saying you would be often expected to do more independent finding of sources and more independent writing in that sense. So it's about almost, I think that kind of independent learner is more of a thing. So you are taking all those skills that you've been developing about how to form arguments and how to use sources to evidence arguments, and then you are basically building the arguments with sources that you have found. So you'll spend more time looking for sources with Google Scholar or through the library, or in a real library, which I still love, and you will actually go and find those sources for yourself. What's relevant? What's going to help articulate the arguments? So you have to have more of a sense of where you want to go with the question that's been asked. You know, what's your framework? What's your plan? So again, you know, you think back to level 1 when you were encouraged to do essay plans. Level 3 is when it really comes into its own, because you are going to be expected to be taking the reader through a very clear sense of what argument you were approaching the question with. And so that's why it's really important to have a logical flow through your essay or through your piece of writing. And everything you write about has to help contribute to that.
But still we're at undergraduate level, and so while you're doing this independent research, you're still very much using evidence as opposed to your own opinion.
Oh gosh, yes.
And this is one thing I think that conceptually is quite difficult, because students will often think, great, I can talk about what I want to now. This is my opportunity to really say what I think about X, Y and Z, and it's not the case, is it?
No, because you are essentially an informed observer. So you are gathering the evidence and you are using it to evidence an argument, but there has to be evidence, because it's not about I think, I wish, you know, there's not
It's about using it to build those things.
It's using it, yeah.
We've got a quick question, Rachel, that I'd appreciate a brief answer for. Yeah,
fantastic question from Jamie. Jamie's just entering level 2, but is already thinking about what he would like to do for his level 3 research project. He's doing psychology. Any tips at this point, starting to think through research projects?
That's a great question. We need to be brief, Rachel, but we were talking about this the other day. What's your advice?
Absolutely. So think about what you're interested in. As you're doing your level 2 modules, are there areas that are jumping out of you at you as more interesting? Sometimes the level 3 psychology students will ask for level 2 students to be participants, so look out for that, because it's great to be a participant. But I would say, just as you're going through your level 2 modules, what areas are kind of you finding interesting? What method do you find interesting? Because again, with the psychology research project, you're going to have to pick a specialism method to use. So what is interesting you? Go and do some reading, you know, and when you have this summer, you can actually go and have a little read, look at the BPS has a thing called Research Digest. Now, it is for psychologists, but I tell you what, I defy anybody to not find it interesting. There's loads of quick summaries of research that's happening right now. So the BPS Research Digest, if you Google it, you'll find it. It's just won an award. It's a great resource to have, and it will just give you a flavour of current research that's happening now, written in a really engaging way. Highly recommend it.
And it's a great way to see, again, what sort of things you'd be interested in doing for your own project. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. I hope that's covered your question. And also, don't forget, you've still got your tutors. So just as you're finishing up, they're a great source of people to talk to, and the student support team as well can give you plenty of advice, and the qual sites as well would be very useful for psychology in particular. Well, Rachel, that's been a fantastic session. Thank you so much for that. We're now going to play another short video where we're going to talk about study planning with Claire Collier, and then I'll be back for our next session, which Gemma is going to talk to us about revisiting material from her module and her tips as a student for how to make the most of summertime study. See you in a minute.